What's going on, guys? Dare here with Fantasy Football Advice, coming at you with another mock draft. So today's mock draft, we are on NFL.com. It's a 10-team standard league, and to my knowledge, I don't think that we've done one on NFL.com. I'm in the 9th spot in a 10-man league, so I'm going to be in the wraparound mostly. Before I do get into these picks, though, just have to mention, if you are one of the people selected for the subscriber leagues, please go to your email, make sure to join the league and set your account up. There are still a few of you who have been invited who have not yet accepted and set up your account. If you don't do it, we haven't set a date yet, but if you don't do it soon, you're gonna lose your spot. We've already got people with emails submitted for kind of replacements or backups, so to speak. So yeah, definitely make sure to lock in your spot, because you don't want to be looking back in a week from now missing out. So anyways, back to the draft here. I'm in the 9th spot. I tend to like taking AJ Green.
Your team is now on the clock.
AJ Green here. There are a few good options. You have AJ Green, DeMarco Murray, Jordy Nelson. Some of the ADPs on NFL.com are a little wacky, not gonna lie. I'm going AJ Green first pick. Like, Jordy Nelson way at 13 doesn't really add up to me. I don't think Jordy Nelson should really ever, I mean, I cannot see him falling to, top of the 2nd round, but I don't think he should ever be placed there. Michael Thomas, T.Y. Hilton below Dez Bryant. That is definitely interesting. I expect maybe that's due to the Andrew Luck news that he hasn't yet played or he hasn't yet thrown. But still, these ADPs are a little wonky. I was going through here real quick. This is my first time I've ever drafted on NFL.com. I know some of you out there have leagues using this format, and a lot of late round values you can find, just a ton. Rankings. So let's talk about rankings. I'm going Devonta Freeman easily. What a good start. Devonta Freeman and AJ Green. Rankings.
Your team is now on the clock.
We had a big overhaul on the website for rankings, and there will still be more updates to come. But if you haven't checked out the rankings in a while, go to the website thefantasyfootballadvice.com and check those out. They may be the ones that you should be using for your draft. If you're using ones from 2 weeks ago, throw them out. Go to the website, get the new ones, because they're going to be most up to date as we prepare for draft day. I personally have a bunch of buddies of mine, which I had to actually leave that league this year because I had too many other obligations. They drafted last night a live draft because they didn't want to do it the following Saturday because there's that Conor McGregor fight. But they did it. Normally we go out to Buffalo Wild Wings, we set up the board, that kind of stuff. It's always a good time. I kind of sent out a few texts this morning to see how the draft went and who ended up getting who's the winner, who's the loser, because I'm still interested. I still am going to be following who's winning in that league. I just unfortunately can't be a part of it this year, but I'm getting excited. You guys should be too. We're really getting close to the start of the NFL season. There's already been some preseason shakeups. A lot of the changes to our rankings have a lot to do with preseason. Preseason is a big factor when deciding, if a player's stock is on the rise or if it's dropping. I know specifically, I thought Devontae Parker and Jay Cutler, while there wasn't a ton, a ton of information out there, I thought that was something that made me feel even better about grabbing Devontae Parker late. So we had him, Devontae Parker, that is, in a few videos, top 5 videos, mostly late round values, sleepers, stuff like that. And that was with Tannehill, and now I think his value definitely increased from there. Other risers, Christian McCaffrey played very well. His ADP has always been a little high. I mean, right here it is behind Joe Mixon, coming in 30th overall. 30th overall is a back-end 2nd round pick in 12-team leagues. I'm sorry, no, back-end 3rd round pick in 12-man leagues. But it's a little pricey, but the performance he put on in limited work was just phenomenal. He scored a touchdown, he had a couple receptions, and the yardage was there too. So back to my draft here. Let's go to my roster. Devontae Freeman and AJ Green. If you're in a 10-man league and you're picking at the 9th spot and you got these two players, then you've already won the first 2 rounds for sure. I don't mind taking a wide receiver or a running back. Looks like the running backs are starting to get, the good ones at least, a little scarce. Joe Mixon's here. I wish Joe Mixon would fall a little bit more. Been seeing him rise, if anything. The news is a little contradictory. You know, so-and-so looks good. You know, Jeremy Hill's going to be the starter. You know, Jeremy Hill's going to get goal line touches. You can't listen to any of it, but one thing's for sure, talent will always shine through. You're not going to keep a player on the bench when you're trying to win games. And if any roster, if any team is really worried about winning games right now, especially making it to the playoffs and winning a playoff game, it's got to be the Cincinnati Bengals. I mean, how many times can you lose in the first round of the playoffs and still keep your job? You know, you have to think that they are starting to get a little fed up with it. I know I would be. So
Your team is now on the clock.
So I can get Joe Mixon. Would love it. Then hopefully Terrell Pryor or Demaryius Thomas on the wraparound. Oh, CJ Anderson. Look at him. 36th overall. Anyone worried about stacks? We got Cincinnati stack going on. Joe Mixon, AJ Green. Don't worry about that. Now, when you're getting 2 receivers, like let's say Amari Cooper and Michael Crabtree, that you definitely may want to avoid, especially considering they play the Broncos twice.
Your team is now on the clock.
They play the Chiefs twice. So between Demaryius Thomas and Terrell Pryor, I like the upside of Terrell Pryor. I like the safe floor of Demaryius Thomas. I might just take, this is a standard league actually, so I'm not going to take Christian McCaffrey. PPR, for sure, Christian McCaffrey gets a huge bump. But in standard, he is not as valuable. Not to say he doesn't have any standalone value in standard, but you do have to bump him down because you know his role will be primarily as a pass-catching back. Terrell Pryor, Demaryius Thomas, Demaryius. I do like the upside of Terrell Pryor, don't get me wrong, but Demaryius Thomas is guaranteed points each week. Not to say Terrell Pryor isn't. He's definitely been looking good and been like literally the only healthy player, the only healthy wide receiver that Cousins has had to throw to in the offseason, which is only going to help build that connection, that receiver quarterback connection moving forward. But I went Demaryius Thomas only because we have Demaryius Thomas higher in our tier-based rankings, and you gotta stick to your rankings. I don't have them up right now, so just going off of memory right there, but I know that Demaryius Thomas we're pretty high on. Sammy Watkins still is very high, not for us, I'm talking this ADP, much too high for my liking. I would not take him there. Now if Sammy Watkins fell in a 12-man league to like the 6th round, which I know is never going to happen, I would do it. I mean, theoretically, right, Kenny Britt had 1,000 yards. Sammy Watkins is more talented than Kenny Britt. Kenny Britt did it with a mixture of who? He did it with Jared Goff. He did it with Case Keenum. Like, he did it with nobody. Sammy Watkins, while he is much better, I'm not thinking the week-to-week consistency is going to be there. The team just doesn't score points. So I think a 6th-round pick wouldn't be bad because basically you won't mind benching your 6th-round pick because you'll probably have, you know, your 2 running backs and your 3 wide receivers. And then there you go, a bench player. But and then if he performs consistent enough, then you toss him in the starting lineup. Or if he has a great matchup, you toss him in the starting lineup. But you don't have to feel obligated to start a player who's on a team that only scores an average of 14 points per game. I do expect them to have an improved offense, not because they have added Sammy Watkins specifically, but I think that the new head coach there is just going to change things up, and this team needs a change. My next pick, I have 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs. I think that's pretty good. I'm pretty happy. I do really want another running back to go with Joe Mixon, especially considering Joe Mixon may not get the amount of touches that I need to start the season. For those of you worried about bye weeks, I can tell I have 2 players on bye weeks, week 6, 2 players on bye week, week 5. How much do I care about that? None at all. I could care less about the bye week. I'll figure it out as I go. Plus, I do so many trades that odds are probably 1 out of these 4 aren't going to be on my roster by week 5. Larry Fitzgerald is a guy I definitely am targeting with the
Your
idea
team
to
is
trade.
now on the clock.
Let's see. Bilal Powell, not as good in standard. Look at this. We have Terrence West. The value is just not there right now. So I have to go back. I have to get a receiver. Tyreek Hill is really good, especially for standard. So I think I'm going to go him. Keenan Allen. That's great value there. Got a couple of safe floor guys, but I think I want Tyreek Hill here. It's between Tyreek Hill and Keenan Allen. I think I have to stick with my rankings. I have Keenan Allen ahead. Tyreek Hill is definitely climbing up the rankings. Definitely climbing up NFL.com draft boards because 39th overall. Wow. I think that's the highest in any form that I've ever seen. Martavis Bryant's a great standard target too. Only problem is I need a running back. Ty Montgomery, definitely a better PPR play. Bilal Powell, definitely a better PPR play. Would I touch Powell in standard? Yes. Would I touch Montgomery in standard? Yes, but you do have to give them knocks. Mike Gillislee, extremely overvalued right now. This is standard, so I can kind of see the appeal, but it's the Patriots we're talking about. We're not going to know how often they're going to use him. You assume he's going to be used in the red zone. We've seen James White be used in a pass-catching role in that situation many times in many years. I really do want Ameer Abdullah, though. Those of you following the channel who aren't fans of Ameer Abdullah, I'm sure you weren't fans of the Keenan Allen pick, but when you got Demaryius Thomas with a safe floor, AJ Green also safe floor, and the upside, clearly he's my first overall pick, you got to take shots, and I think that's the first
Your
time
team
I've ever
is
been
now
able to
on the
get
clock.
Keenan Allen that late. So I think it's Bilal Powell, and then hope Ameer Abdullah gets to me. So yeah, I'm thinking Bilal Powell, and then hope that Ameer Abdullah falls to me. I'm going to go Tyreek Hill. Yeah, I'm going to get Tyreek Hill because I'm not in love with Bilal Powell in standard. So I'm going to just take the value. I think Tyreek Hill as my 6th round pick is perfect. I know I said Watkins if he falls to the 6th rounds, which look how much he's dropping. No one's touching him. But I meant that in a 12-team league, so it's different. Now, the fact that Bilal Powell isn't taken clearly shows how devalued he is. Same with Jarvis Landry in standard leagues. I think between Bilal Powell and Jarvis Landry, clearly Powell retains more value in standard because standard you don't get a point for receptions. All you get is any touchdowns and any yardage. Does Bilal Powell have any touchdown upside? Not really. And if he gets, 3-4 receptions per game, that's good in PPR, but if it only amounts to 30-40 yards, it's only 3 or 4 points. So take one with the touchdowns, you're getting 30 or 40 yards through the air as a running back, that's good. But if you're only matching it, with 20-30 yards on the ground, that's not really great performances. And Matt Forte will be challenging him for carries. Don't get that confused. They're not just gonna keep Matt Forte on the bench. Will Matt Forte stay healthy for very long? Probably not. He is very old. But that's just a fact of the matter. They will be down a lot. Powell will be used out of the backfield primarily as a pass catcher in those situations. But at least while the game's still manageable, the first half specifically, expect Matt Forte to be very much involved. And if they do, by any chance, make it to the red zone, there is a strong possibility Matt Forte may end up being the guy in those sets. So Stephon Diggs, another guy in standard you really have to watch out for. I mean, he very well could get 1,000 yards this season, but he may only get 4 or 5 touchdowns. He's going to do that with a ton of receptions. So PPR animal, his role is very, very good for PPR, but in standard, 1,000 yards and 5 touchdowns as a ceiling. Not to say actually the yardage, he could potentially have more. I just don't expect Bradford to really be a guy to air it out all that much. But mostly the receptions is where the upside is. And Diggs, while he should still finish as a wide receiver, back in wide receiver 2, maybe at worst back in wide receiver 3 in standard. In PPR, he really could be like top end wide receiver 2. Technically, he was on a per game basis in PPR averaging that amount of points. So we know he can do that in PPR. However, while he was averaging that in PPR, if you go over and looked at his standard value, he had nowhere near that amount of value. I think he was like wide receiver 26. So clearly the receptions make a huge difference.
Your team is now on the clock.
I got my guy Ameer Abdullah. So Eddie Lacy, we're not drafting him anymore. We used to think he had good value because he's a mid-round pick. He had done it before, especially in standard. I was targeting him a lot in standard, but all this news about Thomas Rawls working with the ones, and first of all, their line is just garbage. Their offensive line is garbage, and I think I read yesterday, but don't quote me, one of their offensive tackles got injured and tore an ACL or something, and now he's going to be out for the season. Not good, not good. So Eddie Lacy, he can't. If they went out and said Eddie Lacy's going to be the guy, he's going to get this amount of carries. He has passed his weight test, which is good. So clearly he's focused and his head's in the right area. But if you're saying Thomas Rawls is going to be the guy, he's working with the ones, you're saying Eddie Lacy is going to be the guy, and then you have CJ Prosise who will be in certain pass catching situations, that's just a nightmare. You have already one of the worst offensive lines. You potentially lose another one, I believe. That's what I read. It's just a situation we're going to avoid. So Paul Perkins, Ameer Abdullah, and Eddie Lacy. Paul Perkins a better standard guy, but before we used to have that ranked, I believe
your team is now on the clock.
Eddie Lacy, Ameer Abdullah, Paul Perkins. I think it's now Ameer Abdullah, Paul Perkins, and then just don't even draft Eddie Lacy. I'm getting Martavis Bryant for sure. I'm set with wide receivers now. I really would have liked to have Paul Perkins here, but I have been losing some faith in the run game for the Giants. The good news for Paul Perkins is that they haven't brought anyone in. Surprisingly, they drafted Wayne Gallman, who potentially could be a goal line situation type of back, but his role is pretty safe. He's going to be in there in first and second down. Shane Vereen more than likely will be the pass catching role, and he'll get the ball between the 20s for sure. How often will they throw? More often than they're going to run. So how many opportunities is he going to see? A fair amount, but he's not going to be a guy to get 15 plus touches per game. What you're going to get from him is probably fair yardage, maybe 50 to 60 yards per game, and some weeks he'll have a touchdown, other weeks he won't. You pick the matchups, that's definitely going to be good. But you're telling me that these guys in the red zone aren't going to throw when you got Odell Beckham, Brandon Marshall, they just got Evan Ingram. They have just a ton of weapons now. Sterling Shepard's no joke either. We saw him get a ton of touchdowns last year, a decent amount. So they have just so many pass catching options. Not that in comparison to his ADP, I think that he is very fair valued. I think it's hard. You'll be hard pressed to find better value around where he's going. Normally I see Tevin Coleman being taken ahead of him, so that's an interesting pick. If you watch the predicting a top 5 running back, Tevin Coleman made that list, probably to no surprise. For every opportunity he had, he really shined. But I don't know if I want to draft him this year. I expect regression from the offense as a whole, and I don't think it's going to come from Julio. I think Matt Ryan is going to be fine. I don't think he's going to be the number 2 quarterback like he was last year. Mohamed Sanu is going to do what he did, not that much. Devontae Freeman's going to be fine. And I think the only people that really take a hit are going to be Tevin Coleman, and it's going to be probably Taylor Gabriel. I think those 2 players. I do still need another running back because I got Joe Mixon, Amir Abdullah, Devontae Freeman. Yeah, no one's touching Eddie Lacy right now. Terrence West, look at him all the way down here. Where is he? Don't tell me someone sniped him. Oh no, he's right here. 130 overall. I'll take him. Okay, Danny Woodhead. He is definitely PPR guy, but he should be used in a situation. He has been used in the red zone throughout his career. Don't be afraid to take Danny Woodhead in standard. Don't draft him at his PPR value or PPR price tag, because in PPR he is worth much more. In standard,
Your team is now on the clock.
He still has value because he will be used in the red zone in certain situations. You know, obviously Terrence West is the bigger body, the bigger player, but Danny Woodhead still retains value in the yardage situation. You're going to lose out on a lot of receptions, but he's definitely draftable. I think he's a very fair value in standard, and if he drops because everyone thinks he's kind of a PPR guy, which he is, take that value and don't worry about starting him. So I'm pretty set. I might as well start at least dabbling in tight ends. And oh, sorry about that, guys. I did take, so my last 4 picks: Tyreek Hill, Amir Abdullah, Martavis Bryant, and Paul Perkins. This is becoming a really good standard scoring team. One thing about NFL that's weird, they always have their what's it called? They have their their rankings are messed up, but their percentage of ownerships. Yeah, their percentage of ownerships throughout the season. You ever read a fantasy article from NFL.com about their fantasy? They'll say, you know, go ahead and you know, draft Jeremy Maclin. He's only owned in, you know, 34% of leagues, so he has 34% ownership. And then you go over to ESPN or Yahoo and you see that he's owned in like 96% of leagues. So it's like,
your team is now on the clock.
What are these guys doing? I think a good value. Stephon Diggs has a good value at this point. I don't think I can pass that up for sure. There's no way. I like Cam Newton though. This late, it's pretty good, but can't pass that for Stephon Diggs. Quarterbacks are a dime a dozen. Cam Newton could be a you know, a league-winning type of quarterback potentially. I don't think I've ever drafted him in a mock, but you don't need me to tell you he can finish first overall. He's done it before. I think he's finished as a top 5 3 different times in his career, maybe even 4. So maybe not 4. He's only been drafted since 2011, but it wouldn't surprise me even if that was the result. So you're telling me you have the upside, top 5, pretty clear in this late of a round, but you also have the floor of like QB 20. I think he'll be improved this year. The top 5 I think might be a stretch, but I think top 8 is very reasonable. Where do we have him ranked? I think we have him ranked about 10th. So the only problem is he's being drafted much higher than that in most leagues. A lot of people love Cam Newton. They see the the glamour, and I mean, he makes plays. He has a lot of highlight reel style of plays, so he's going a lot earlier. I'm gonna prepare for my next pick. My roster is already almost full. If I get Cam Newton, that's not bad. I only have one more bench spot, and I want Terrence West. I'm good on wide receivers. Got AJ Green, Demaryius Thomas, Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen, don't get injured again, man. You're doing good. Tyreek Hill, Martavis Bryant, Stephon Diggs. I hope Cam Newton falls to me. That would be awesome. Tyrod Taylor, still don't be too worried about drafting him, and he just got drafted just like that. Someone drafted Tyrod Taylor before Cam Newton. interesting. And before Derek Carr. Derek Carr, I feel like, is one of the most overrated fantasy quarterbacks. Not real life quarterbacks. He's solid, but fantasy quarterbacks. He's very efficient, kind of Dak Prescott-esque. Maybe not to that extent, but his numbers are never anything spectacular. At least not yet. I know his career is super early and it's too early to tell, but come on, Cam Newton or Tyrod Taylor? Cam Newton for sure. I gotta not get my hopes up though, but this team is just too stacked that I don't know who is drafting on NFL.com, but I think it's a bunch of chumps, really. Yeah, we don't really do NFL.com, but we're trying to accommodate the requests of you guys, the subscribers, as much as we can. That's why we switched to 7 days a week, because we want to fill in these. We want to fill in the days, the Saturday and Sunday, with requests from you. Mock Draft Monday's a thing where we're actually going to be giving you guys the best tips on making your best roster that we would make. We're drafting it with the intention of it's our own. Obviously, we're still doing that on Saturday and Sunday. This is a team I definitely would draft, and this is a team I would love to have. This is a league winner right here. However, I don't play on NFL.com, and neither should you. No one should, really. I will say that their interface is pretty cool looking, but other than that, that's kind of all they have going for them. I am getting the NFL Game Pass again for the 2017 season because
Your team is now on the clock.
they got Cam Newton here. I am getting NFL Game Pass for the 2017 season. We're going to be doing the podcast more than likely. Nick and I are going to be watching
Your team is now on the clock.
as much tape as we possibly can. Let me just see Terrence West. Terrence West, he'll probably fall. So I'm going to get Eric Ebron and then draft Terrence West next. We're going to be watching a ton of tape. And, oh darn, I should have got Hunter Henry. I like Hunter Henry. But we're going to be watching a ton of tape on players. This is going to help us find these sleepers, these waiver wire targets. NFL Game Pass we have no affiliation with, so it has nothing to do with that, but you can watch all the players. I had it last year, and you can literally just pick a player, hone in on it, and watch every play that player had. You can go back and watch the games because I also have NFL Sunday Ticket. I have it every year. NFL Sunday Ticket's great because you can watch every game, but you can't go back and watch any game you want. You can only just watch it live. If you can, I didn't know how to do that, and NFL Game Pass is actually cheaper than NFL Sunday Ticket, and you can watch the games condensed, 45 minutes. Live is a different story, but I think I'm going to try Red Zone for the first time this year. I know a lot of people. I'm actually crazy because I feel like everybody knows about the Red Zone channel except for me. I haven't really used it that much. Call me old school, but I like to watch the games. I mean, normally with NFL Sunday Ticket, I'll be flipping between like 2, 3, maybe even 4 games at a time, especially the morning games. And I'll just watch them until my offensive players really aren't on the field anymore, and then I'll switch to the other game where my offensive players are on, so on and so forth. So that's kind of like my Sunday ritual. But either way, long story short, we're going to be watching a ton of film. We're going to bring you guys the information we find on these players from watching the tape, and we're going to let you know about them on the podcast. We may not be able to get waiver wire targets out to you besides through the article. Premium members are going to be getting the subscription to our articles on waiver wire targets and trade targets. Reason being is actually we're going to have a tough time getting the podcast out that early because we'll kind of have to do it on the fly, and remember, we do have busy schedules and it's on a weeknight, and I work during the week, Nick goes to school during the week, so it's really difficult. We most likely will be doing it on a Saturday. That's what's going to work best for us, but one thing we can guarantee you is it's going to be good content. You guys are really going to enjoy it. Nothing's set in stone yet. The season hasn't started yet. If we don't get the viewership or enough people interested, then obviously there's no point, because we're not going to have a podcast just to speak to ourselves. We want to provide value for you guys, and if you guys aren't interested in it, that's fine. But we did release a podcast with Big Dogs Gotta Eat last week, and it did get really good reviews, I would say, from you guys in the comments section. You guys really let us know that you liked it, so we appreciate that. So expect more to hear from us on that moving forward. As for this team, I'm just hoping Terrence West falls to me. While I wait, I might as well break down my team. Oh no, Terrence West did get taken. Son of a biscuit. Yeah, see, I could have taken Terrence West instead of Eric Ebron, and then probably got Hunter Henry. That's okay. So who would I take out of these guys? Probably a flyer pick. I have to pick quick.
Your team is now on the clock.
I'm a fan of CJ Procise, but he really sucks in standard. Joe Williams, not really. Jamal Charles, nope. Jamal Williams. I'll take Jamal Williams in a standard league. Alright, let's see what defenses and kickers we got going. Man, this guy's team's not that great.
Your team is now on the clock.
Michael Thomas, Isaiah Crowell. Actually, it's a pretty good team. I'm just not a fan of Delaney Walker. Dalvin Cook is really good too. This guy's team is really good. I know what I was thinking. Sammy Watkins, you got him super late. Giants defense is good. I prefer Philly. I'm a Philadelphia Eagles fan. Philly's defense is going to be beast this year. Top 5. You heard it first. Let's see. We got Seattle kicker. Always a good kicker. Matt Prater. Definitely a good kicker. That team had trouble converting in the red zone last year. Expect more of the same this year. So let's go through my team real quick. Cam Newton, quarterback. Do I feel good about it? No, but like look at the QBs that in this league we would have: Andy Dalton, Phillip Rivers, Eli Manning, Ben Roethlisberger. I mean, come on. If this were my league, if this were your league, if you're on NFL.com and you're drafting right now and you have these people on the waivers, that's what you can have. If Cam Newton's sucking, drop one of your guys, maybe hold on to Cam Newton, see if he improves. If he doesn't pass the eye test, if there's something really wrong with this offense, I mean, trade him. Wouldn't recommend dropping Cam Newton. Someone's going to want him, even if he's playing bad. Then I have, for RBs, I have Devontae Freeman, Joe Mixon. I have Amir Abdullah, Paul Perkins, Jamal Williams. So the bench play is kind of shaky a little bit. But one thing is for sure, Joe Mixon is probably not going to be my week 1 starter. I don't think there's just, a big enough opportunity share for him to start the season. So I probably wouldn't risk starting him week 1. I'll put Amir Abdullah in there, and I'll put Amir Abdullah in with confidence. Amir Abdullah is actually one of my big targets this year. I know he really disappointed a lot of people last year, but I'm not a fan of Theo Riddick. I don't think Theo Riddick is all that good. In PPR, he has some value, but I still think in PPR, Amir Abdullah finishes.
Your team is now on the clock.
Okay, thank you. Amir Abdullah finishes ahead of Theo Riddick in PPR scoring, so that's truly what I believe. And if you're telling me Theo Riddick is going to be catching all those passes, then he's still going to finish behind Amir Abdullah, that just tells you what I think. Dustin Hopkins, great kicker on a great, powerful offense. Okay, so
thanks for attending the NFL Draft.
You're welcome.
Best of luck
Goodell.
this season.
Thank you, Roger Goodell. Really appreciate that. Those little sound bites are classic, huh? First time I've ever done NFL.com. That's great. Super cheesy. I love it. So back to my roster. Went through Cam Newton. Went through the running backs. Paul Perkins, Jamal Williams. Jamal Williams is definitely a stronger candidate in standard scoring. This is a standard scoring league that I'm in right now. There is a chance that he pushes Ty Montgomery for targets. I know Aaron Jones, supposedly, is looking pretty good, but I think Jamal Williams is the better talent. I know some people might argue that fact, but I mean, clearly, if he wasn't, why would one be drafted higher than the other? I haven't seen anyone draft Aaron Jones, and I think Jamal Williams definitely does have a strong chance by, week 6 to take over. I'm not saying that anyone drafting Ty Montgomery should be worried about that. Remember, this is what's called a lottery pick. This is not meaning I'm projecting it. I'm just saying there is a chance of it happening. Injuries in the running back community are very, very common. All it takes is one to lose your spot, and you know by the time you're healthy, if another player's producing, that's the end of that. So tight end Eric Ebron, not much to say there. You know, if you've been following the channel, he's been a huge target of ours. Paul Perkins, I talked about him when I drafted him. Not really a stud, but he is definitely one of the better flex slash bye-week fill-ins that you could probably have at the running back position. And the upside of his is not going to be game-breaking. I don't think he has the upside to be anything more than an RB2 at best, just based off of the offense and everything. But still, to have him as your bench player in a standard league, he holds more value in standard. Now, as for the wide receivers, this is really where my team shines. AJ Green, one of my favorite players of basically this fantasy generation. I love him, and I target him every year. It was a big target for me last year. It really hurt when he went out, but love the pick. Demaryius Thomas, it was a tough choice between Demaryius Thomas or Terrell Pryor. I went Thomas just because I had to stick to my guns. Keenan Allen, risky player, but I may not have to start him. Yeah, in this format, I would have to start 3 wide receivers, but I got Tyreek Hill and Martavis Bryant. Martavis Bryant is my favorite player to pick in this year's draft. This is my favorite player to watch. He's my favorite player to pick. So you're talking AJ Green, Demaryius Thomas, Keenan Allen, Tyreek Hill, Martavis Bryant, and then throw in Stephon Diggs right there at the back end, like as a later round pick. Like, I couldn't be more happy with the receivers. I'll give this definitely an A. This is an A draft. But then again, this is on NFL.com. Do us all a favor. Don't pick your drafts, or don't draft anyone on NFL.com. Don't play on NFL.com. It's a little wacky. There's better options out there. But if you are, and you're drafting, your teams in a 10-man league should look as stacked as this, because this was my first time trying, and this is what I got. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you are new to the channel, please be sure to subscribe if you liked it. Hit that thumbs up button. We thank you all for watching, and we will catch you on the next one.